Hello, hello. I am just gonna give us a few seconds here as people's Zoom windows load up and people enter in. Welcome everybody. It's great to see the numbers go up. I can't unfortunately see your beautiful faces because we are in webinar mode, but I trust that you're there, and we always have the reaction buttons and things like that. So feel free to participate that way. But hello, before I get too ahead of myself, my name is Stephanie and I'm the program manager here at Take Me Outside. So welcome to Take Me Outside Week. If this is your first event of the week, welcome. And if you've been along for the rest of the week so far, welcome back. It's wonderful to have you here. And if you've missed anything so far, I'll post a link to the recordings in a moment here. And if you aren't sure even what Take Me Outside Day is all about, this is our 13th year of doing Take Me Outside Day. TMO's executive director, Colin, ran across Canada 13 years ago, ended his run in Victoria, and it was in October. And now we celebrate outdoor learning in October every single year. And that's what TMO is all about. It's all about getting outside, learning beyond the four walls of a classroom, and spending more quality time outside every single day, whatever way that looks like for you. And so I'll post a link in for the chat for the details of the rest of the week. If you're looking for recordings, details, other speakers, there is the link there. I'm joining you from Powhatan Territory on Vancouver Island in BC, Canada. And wherever you're calling in from today, I would love it if you wrote in the chat there, whether that's the traditional territory that you're calling in from, or if you want to just write where your city or your school or your grade, anything like that helps us get to know you. And we love to see it. Because we're in webinar mode, you can either type to host and panelists, or you can have the chat set to everyone. So you can decide on who can see your chat. Throughout the presentation, also, please feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat to ask your questions, either or. And you'll see in the Q&A box, in the option there, you can also upvote questions. So if you see a question that you wanted to ask or a question you really like, you can click the little thumbs up beside the question, and that will upvote it to the top. And then we know that that's a really popular question. So that's a fun way to get involved. And we want to see all of your questions there coming through anytime throughout the conversation here. Anything else to know with Zoom? I have closed captions enabled. So if that is something that's useful to you, you can either enable it. If it's distracting, you can disable it. The presentation is recorded, so you have to leave early, no problem, you can catch up. There'll be prizes at the end, so I'm choosing randomly from all of the questions that get submitted. I will choose 4 lucky winners randomly, and I will announce those prizes at the end. So that is how you get entered to win. And I will mostly be in the chat today answering any sort of questions that come through that is about sort of TMO Day, things like that. But I'm going to pass it over to Jesse and not spend any more time talking about things that are not this conversation that we're all looking forward to, that we're all here for. So really big thanks to Jesse for being here today, from Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and helping facilitate this conversation with our special guest, Julian. And Jesse, I know you're great at introducing yourself. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to introduce Julian. It's all you at this point. So I'm going to pass it over.
Well, thank you so much, definitely. And what an exciting Take Me Outside day and week. For those of you who have been tuning in for the other festivities, it's been a wild ride. I've had the pleasure and privilege of being involved in TMO Day activities, sharing them out, being involved, setting up broadcast series for several years now. Really, there is no greater event in Canada. And a huge thank you to all of you. 75 participants so far from all over Alberta, Florida, Michigan, Ontario, Saskatchewan. Geez, you're everywhere. So thank you all so much. It's really glad to have you for this specific event. As Stephanie mentioned, I'm with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. A lot of you might be familiar with that. Some of you might not be. We do 40 to 50 live, free, interactive broadcasts every single month with scientists and explorers around the world in English and French. Everything we do is on our website. If you want to check out exploringbytheseat.com. That's why I was invited as a host today. When we were setting up this program, we got you the best possible speaker in the world. And Stephanie reached out and said, Would you be willing to host him? Because I've had the chance to host Julian a few times, and really, you're in for such a treat. There is no one more enthusiastic or captivating in the world of urban wildlife conservation, filmmaking, storytelling, and more. So I'm going to stop introducing myself and turn you over to Julian in a minute. So as I said, Julian is a master storyteller. He, in his young career, has done so much to bring the world, specifically of urban wildlife, to communities across Canada and around the world. A lot of you will know him through his amazing breakfast television spot. He's got an awesome shirt on today, so we can highlight that in a minute as well. But he is just, it's rare that I run into someone with as much personality as I have, and Julian surpasses me in every regard. It's really, there's no one better at this. Urban populations in general, we've got a lot of cities joining us today, big cities across Canada, across the US, and a lot of people, when they think of cities, think of them as being places with no wildlife. It's concrete, it's parking lots, it's malls. And I would argue, and I know Julian will agree with me, that urban centers are hugely rich in wildlife of all sorts, things that people would never think to look for, and even big animals, deer, coyotes, depending on what city you're in, even bigger things than that around the globe. And so I'm really excited to dive in with a conversation today with Julian, understanding a little bit more about his career and taking all sorts of questions from you about his storytelling journey. So Julian, welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to our TMO Day adventure today. And I'm so curious, for our audience, can you tell us a little bit of a backdrop of how you got into this? Like, why urban wildlife? What do you do for people who've never heard of you before right now?
Okay, thank you so much, Jesse. Thank you, Take Me Outside, for having me today. So I'm Julian Victor. I'm a wildlife filmmaker and educator from Toronto, Ontario. I've been doing wildlife since I've loved wildlife since I was like 5 years old. There was a documentary about zebras migrating, and from there I was hooked. And then I wanted to get into wildlife. I always wanted to get into wildlife photography and filmmaking, but you know, sometimes life takes you in different turns, and you're trying to figure out where you want to go and get a right path. But it always was in the back of my head, so I did go to school for film school. And took film production. And through there, outside of that, I worked with different various productions, from you name it, from like film festivals down to like rap battle concerts to like weddings, like you name it. And then I ended up working with one cinematographer, and he one day asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to do like wildlife filmmaking, like something for National Geographic one day." And then he gave me a contact of someone he knew from National Geographic, and I spoke to them, and he gave me a lowdown of like some of the producers there, and I studied and researched them for 3 months before I reached out. I even was so nervous, I even actually recorded my voice note to the producer from an editing booth that was recorded. And then she called me back, and the craziest amazing moment of that was seeing National Geographic pop up on my phone as a caller ID, and I was like completely like blown away. And I ended up getting to go around to like Africa and work in Botswana and South Africa, which was a lifelong dream for me. And you know, but at the same time though, I always liked filming around the city just to get more experience. And I realized, because I'm from Toronto, that there's a great deal of biodiversity within the city. And with the lockdown that happened and no one was around, I was able to actually be able to go out there and see the wildlife firsthand, and realize that there's such a great diversity of wildlife seen within the cities. And it just goes to show that there's just as much great diversity in the city as there is in like the Serengeti or in Australia or the Amazon. And you just have to look, and it's actually pretty amazing when you actually see it.
So I'm really curious, Julian, for people that are not convinced yet, can you speak to some of the specific interactions you've had? Any memorable experiences in Toronto or abroad in cities where you had the chance to interact with something really, really cool?
I will say, like, for Toronto, cities has been absolutely is great. So with some of the memorable moments, 3 standouts for me seeing wildlife in our city was seeing a family of foxes that denned in like rocky outcrops in between a condo building and the major highway in Toronto. And this is right smack dab in downtown Toronto, where it's like you have the highway, and then you have underneath the underpass, and then you have the condos and people playing soccer and basketball and everything. And they had like a den, and they had like 6 kits, and after a while I was tipped off about them, and then you actually and I got to see them interact, and I slowly seeing the kits grow and become bigger and actually being more curious. And I gradually got to like get a little, they got trusting with the adults, and I got to like get some really cool shots. And one of the coolest thing being there was the fact that because underneath the overpass there's a lot of graffiti. So one time one of the foxes brought a rabbit back for their kids, so then they started eating it. So I got a shot with the backdrop of the graffiti in the background, so it was like urban wildlife at its like heart, which was just seeing like such an animal that you would see in like a foresty setting in such a concrete jungle adapting and thriving. And it was just really incredibly cool to see that. And the other great encounter that I had was seeing deer in a cemetery. Now I always want to see deer, but usually when you see like deer, they're usually in along the valleys and the outskirts. So you kind of see fleeting moments of them. But in a cemetery, like especially around the rutting season, you'll have like the big bucks, trophy bucks, coming out from the valley to go look for the does. And then it's the most action I've seen, because they're like running around chasing the does, trying to mate with them. And you see cars and buses along on the street while the cemetery is happening. And it was great to see them like appear and disappear among the tombstones. It was really cool to just be like, one minute you'll see nothing, and the next minute they appear. It's like ghosts. They were like ghosts. It was just so cool to see that. And then the last one I would say was just very recently was seeing a snapping turtle lay eggs. And this was in like a very popular park here in Toronto, and they have like marshes along the lake. And then it's around like breeding season. So breeding season for snapping turtles is usually around like June. And I was actually getting ready for a segment of my segment on the wild side and it was about turtles, so I needed to get images of turtles. So I was tipped off that there was a turtle laying eggs, and then I happened to catch the female snapping turtle in the process. She's digging, making sure like the nest is deep enough. And then it took a while. The whole process took 3 hours, but then the money shot came when she dropped the eggs, and then she patched up the nest and like patched it, and then she went back to the water. And it was so cool to see that. And it caused like such a commotion, caused such a attention, seeing, and people were walking, jogging, walking with their dogs, and they just stopped and like, what's this like almost prehistoric creature like doing? And it was like, and the coolest thing is someone said, I feel like I'm watching National Geographic, just because how cool it was. And then the other part was actually interesting, is around the park they have fencing telling people, like letting people know that these are turtle eggs, because oftentimes turtle eggs get predation happens, where so in order to help preserve their numbers, they'll put like steel cages around them so that predators can't get into the nest. So they'll put signs. So someone father was asking me like, well, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a turtle's nest. And he's like, I had no idea these lived here. And that was the coolest thing. It's like some people are kind of shocked when you see like these type of animals all within our city spaces.
What a wide array of magical experiences. Geez, I've seen many deer in the city. For those who live in Toronto, the big park systems, Toronto is really lucky to have some really big ravine systems that are teeming with deer.
Hmm.
I've seen coyotes. I've never seen a snapping turtle. I've only seen one turtle lay eggs in my life. What an incredible experience that would be. A lot of the folks in the chat have been asking about where to find these images. So I've shared your website. So Julian's website's amazing. His Instagram page has a lot of great stuff. So you can check those out as a start. I've also linked in the On the Wild side sort of blog post on your website so people can check out more about the work you do there or catch you on.
Awesome,
So
great.
I'm curious if you have any piece of advice. We've got, again, students from all over North America right now and beyond. If someone wanted to find places in their city with the most wildlife where they would most be likely to have an experience like this, what would you recommend that they do?
Okay, what I would recommend that they do, a lot of times it kind of be a couple of things. You could go on like naturalist groups within your city. There's a lot of birding, there's a lot of bird organizations, or a lot of like bird trips, or a lot of like sometimes parks have daily excursions where they'll have an expert come out and they'll take you around the park. So here in Toronto, we have Tommy Thompson Park, which is like an accidental urban park, which I'll say, and it's one of the best diversity of wildlife you'll ever see in Toronto. And the best part about it is it's the backdrop of the city skyline, and you'll see thousands of birds flying past it, and it's fantastic. So they'll oftentimes have like day trips, or they'll have like programs where they'll have like kids and people go on bird excursions and walking trips to see animals. And that's how you kind of start to kind of get an idea of where you could see them. The other one is like sometimes Facebook groups as well will also say like, hey, there's this bird here. They might see a fox there, but the thing is, because of the fact which we'll get into a bit later, is like sometimes the locations don't get disclosed because they want to keep the location of animals where they were kind of more discreet, because once you kind of give away where they are, it can kind of create a bit of a circus, and that can cause a lot of distress to the animals. So those are like the first steps. But I would say, like, if you want to kind of know where animals are in your city, the best thing is kind of like to go on like sign up for like a bird walk or a bird watch or a naturalist group, and then you would go from there. And then sometimes when you start talking to other bird naturalists or photographers, you start to get a word of mouth of like, okay, well, I saw this bird animal here, and then, oh, I saw this kingfisher there, and then you start to kind of be like, okay, and then your mind starts to start asking questions like, okay, well, where can I find that? How do I see it? What do I do? Okay, and then that's how it kind of goes.
I've got an extra recommendation too, because no matter where people are joining from, if you're lucky enough to be in a city with things like birdwalks, Toronto is abounding and things like this. Anywhere you are in the world, one app that we always recommend to our student audience is iNaturalist. It's amazing. You can type in.
How could I forget iNaturalist? Yeah, and iBird and
Bird is amazing.
Too. Yeah.
iNaturalist is nice because you can go to any city or town in the world, type in your place, and it will show you where every observation has been made. So you can literally find all the most biodiverse hotspots. It's a really, really cool program. The kids spin-off for it is the Seek app, which for our teacher audience today, of which there are so many, I can't encourage you to check that enough. Julian, it's a testament to how interesting you are that we already have more questions than we can possibly take in a 1-hour program. So good problem to have.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a lot of questions very soon, but I do want to lead in with one that we always get, and I think is really important for our students to know, which is, if you're a student, we've got grade 3s, we got grade 5s, we got grade 12s today, we got adults. If you want to find out more or want to get involved in storytelling and photography and filmmaking, what would you recommend? What's the first step for people that want to be like you?
Ooh.
No pressure.
Yeah, that is a question, Jesse. You asked some really tough questions. What I would recommend is to get first, find your focus. Find your focus, what you like. If you want to like do like, you don't have to get find out exactly where you want to go. Like you don't if you want to get like start to get into you said like get into photography, find your focus, what you want to do, and like if it's wildlife conservation, environmental science, like find out focus on that. The other one is kind of educate yourself too. And what I would say recommend too is like if you want to start with photography, start reading up and looking into photography and what like photography is so accessible now. You could shoot on your phone, you could get a DSLR, you could get like it's really not uh about like all this high tech gear. You just could get like a very basic camera with a basic lens and go out there and just start shooting. And also like yeah, like I said, you could use your phone, you could like um you could go out there and you just start like, and then you also have to like the network and start like maybe also to volunteer at like work like at photography workshops or like animal hospitals, just to kind of get a gauge. And also too, there's tons of workshops now available that you could like gain. You don't have to like spend really that much money to learn about how to get into photography, especially nature photography. And yeah, and it's like now for the kids, y'all got like TikTok and everything, so you guys know that more than I do. So you guys could like just post and say, hey, look, I saw this, and then you could just start sharing it and like be your own naturalist and build a small following within that as well, and just like organization. And that's how you could kind of start building up like uh you know just network and connect with other, and also to connect with other people. Don't be afraid to collaborate with others too, because then you could learn a wealth of information. And people are very receptive to like giving advice and insight to how things are. And you could like kids could go out and be like a mentee to like somebody, or adults could learn to be a mentee with photographers. But and also to just keep persisting with it, because it's a toughie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a tough road if you want to like get into like a wildlife filmmaking space, because it's such a niche area, and it's also very like it can be a bit competitive too. So you have to like keep at it, and then don't be afraid to go different avenues, because it might end up getting you back to where you want to be.
Start with a story is the essence, and we get this from a lot of the people that we feature in our broadcast just generally, and work from there. The technology is available to everyone, and don't be afraid to fail. You and I
exactly. If you have a good story, if you're in your backyard, if you see like a hummingbird or butterflies, or just something that I'm like, oh, that might be a good story, or like, oh, how do I tell that story? What do I find out more information about it? And then you start researching from there. And then, like you said, Jess, you could bring all the tools in to kind of help you build the arc of that story together. But then the main goal and focus is the story, because people will like, if you find a really cool story about a certain particular animal or a nature event, and it can really get eyes. Like a one for me was a very cool one was turkey vultures that roosted on top of a building in Toronto. And you would never expect a huge bird like a turkey vulture to be soaring around the city of Toronto, literally above a subway station, and people are none the wiser. So it's like, and that's a cool thing, especially with urban wildlife, because being in cities, not everybody has the exposure to go camping or go to different spots. So the city gives you that opportunity to find to kind of is like the gateway to getting that connection with wildlife. And again, if you find the right story, it could actually be cool to actually see. You might end up seeing like an animal underneath a backdrop that you wouldn't expect, and the next minute National Geographic's not going to be like, hey, could you get that again? And it's like, so
the recent Planet Earth 2 BBC series, and Planet Earth 3 is coming out soon as well. I had a whole episode dedicated to cities, and Toronto's urban wildlife was featured in that. So again, an incredible opportunity to take your filmmaking skills and turn it into something that is reached by millions and millions of people. Julian, we've got a great question on urban wildlife. Josh Wilkinson wanted to know, do you find that urban wildlife is brave or more used to human interactions than those outside the urban environment? So do you notice a difference between urban and rural wildlife?
Oh, there's a huge difference. The wildlife in cities, they do not care. They're like wildlife in cities, they're much more, because of the fact that there's such a density of people, and because of the fact that they have to coexist with people on a daily basis. They're very, a lot of them are oftentimes habituated to people, and they will let you get close, but then they'll keep a wide berth to you. So Toronto is like, if anybody knows out there, Toronto is the raccoon capital of the world. And city raccoons are very, very, they do not care about, like, they do not care versus if you get close versus rural raccoons. Rural raccoons, if they see you, they're like bolting. If a city raccoon, you're walking by, they'll just look at you and be like,
yeah, it's my spot. Where are you
like
here?
And they won't really budge unless you go like right next to them, and then they start taking off. But then you'll have, like, even deer in the cemetery. The closest I've ever, like, I got close because, I was like, I had my camera and my lens, and just one thing to very passive, like, let everyone know, like, always put your safety first, because you don't want, and keep a respectful distance, because any animal, it doesn't matter what, it can literally turn into fight or fight in 2 seconds, and then you don't want to put yourself and the animal in danger. So always keep a respectable distance. But I find that a lot of, like, urban wildlife, they'll get close, or then also too, because people, which they shouldn't, but feed them, they get more used to people, and they want to be like, they want to be like, oh, there's a human coming, and let me go and get food. Like, let me go see if he has food or not. So yeah, city animals are definitely a lot more brazen, just because the fact that there's also a lot more, there's the more people around, and also to the accessibility of food. So they're just like, they'll just go eat food, and people will just walk by and pay no mind.
So a great follow-up to this, Miss Drake's class, 4-5s, Finch Public School. I want to note, I've never seen one classroom put more things in a chat in my entire career. So you guys are like on it today. Just the best chat ever, by the way. Take me outside.
This is crazy. This is nuts. Yeah, I love it.
So they want to know, is your work dangerous? When you're having these animals that are brazen, they don't mind people, you've got a big animal like a deer, you've got something that might be predatory like a coyote. Do you ever feel threatened in the work that you do, or how do you mitigate that?
I do, like, in terms of them being dangerous, I think you have to, the one thing to know is the fact that they know that they can be, but you have to kind of, before going in, you kind of have to do some research of like, if you're doing a story, know the animal it is that you're trying to take photos and photograph up. Sometimes some animals will get close to you, like, you can get close, but then it can be, if it's based on their comfort zone, they'll, like, probably back away or run. But then there's sometimes it can be, I wouldn't say dangerous, but, like, it depends. Like, with like coyotes, for example, will oftentimes run away from you, but they will approach you if you are, like, a threat. The one thing, any animal will approach you if you're a threat to, any animal will defend themselves, especially if you're in proximity to their young, and they will, like, defend, and they'll defend themselves or approach you. So sometimes there can be situations,
But unlikely. Well, and this is important. I mean, I think for our kids that might be starting their own journey of curiously looking into wildlife and trying to find it in their cities, you are almost never likely to end up in a situation where an animal poses a threat to you in a city. It's an extremely unlikely thing, especially in the United States and Canada, where a lot of our audience is from.
100%.
Yeah. Use common sense. If you're young, be with an adult. Like, that helps, especially if it's a large animal. But
yeah, and if you're around that, like, if for example, like, if there have been often times where sometimes some schools would see coyotes in around school areas, and people would get very, as they should, like, nervous. But the coyote is not really a threat, and, like, if they approach you, that means the coyote has been fed, and they're trying to, like looking for food. If you're a kid and you're white or you're a parent and you see a coyote approaching you, make as much noise as possible and make yourself appear to be bigger so that can intimidate them, and just be like, go away, go. If you have an umbrella, push the umbrella in their face. Just do what you have to do to like scare them away, because when you start to like become big and intimidating, they'll suddenly be like, oh, okay, I was, no, this is a I'm gonna go away. I don't need this, and then they'll go. So there are like, in terms of like danger, funny thing, Jesse, the most dangerous encounter I had with an animal was actually with somebody's dog.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
was off leash.
Yep. So again, this is something that we hear from a lot of the scientists and explorers that we feature in our programs, is you're more likely to run into problems with people than you ever are with wildlife. If you respect wildlife and use common sense, you're unlikely to ever be in a negative situation. But I always like to field that question. So thank you for that, Julian. Now, we've got, again, a gazillion questions. I love you as an audience. We're going to do a rapid fire round, okay? These are all like 1 or 2 word answers, because I got a whole bunch that I want to cover from as many kids as possible. So Abdul Rahman wants to know what age you started taking photos.
I started taking photos at about, funny enough, you should, I'm going to give my age now. I started like taking photography serious when I was 27.
Wow. I think that's an important note. No, that's great.
Yeah, and I was really taking when I was like 27. So that was years ago. So you did the math. Despite my age, I look really young, but sure. But yeah, that was when I was 27. Yeah.
Really glad you mentioned this. I think a lot of people assume that people are experts when they're really young. They start when they're 4. Very few people end up in the career that they love with something that they had a passion for when they were really, really young. If you can do that, amazing. Yeah, dinosaur people are the best for that. But go on, Julian.
never feel like, with anybody, especially with young, whether you're young with your oh, Mrs. Curtis, you're funny. Then never feel like it's too late. But definitely when you're a kid, start like I did get into photography a little bit later, but my passion, I didn't really have the technicalities, but I had the passion and skill for it. And a lot of kids, when you have, especially like any adults, when kids have that passion for wildlife and nature and want to pursue it, nurture that, because you never know where it would never know where it would take them. So definitely nurture their curiosity and exploration for the natural world, because it's just, they definitely need that. But yeah.
My plug du jour, my parents took me to the library. Libraries have infinite free resources, online, books, resources, articles, everything. If you want to be inspired, go to a library. Every city that's featured today have public and school libraries. Go to the best places ever.
I was a big nerd. My dad used to just leave me in libraries and I would just read. I would just read forever. So it was the best. I was like, I'll just read, and that's why sometimes they're like, did you go to school for like wildlife? I'm like, no, I just on Saturdays he would just drop me in the books in the library, and I'll just be like, this is like
all right, we're gonna do some more rapid ones. Benjamin's grade 3s. Do you have any pets? You love animals so much. You got any animals with you or not?
Yes, I do.
What do you got?
Do you want me to show you?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Ooh, we got a mystery with Julian. This audience, you guys are the most amazing audience of all time. Right. Stephanie, you need these people back all the time. By the way, for any questions we don't get answered live, Julian does have his email on his website, which I featured, so you can harass him after the fact too. We're back.
So I have a pet, and this is I've had him since I was 5. He is a red-eared slider. He's
the best.
His name is Slash. He is a red-eared slider turtle. Native to, I've had him since I was 5 years old. Oh, he's trying to get out of my hands. I just took him out of his tank, so he's trying to move. So I've had him since I was my red-eared slider's name is Slash from the Ninja Turtles. He's one of the villains. Nice. So he's like, this is my guy. I've had him since I was 5 years old. Again, telling my age. I've had him for quite a while. So, and he's just like, I've had him with me, and he's like my nostalgia, and I just have him all the time. And the greatest thing is I'll put him on the ground, he'll run, he'll come up to me, I'll rub underneath his neck, and everything. I sometimes let him crawl. I sometimes let him crawl on me, and he's trying to get away right now. And
Yeah.
but I think he has his this is his time to shine. So say hi,
Hi, Slash.
everyone. So and then I'll drop him and I'll let him wander. But yeah, that's my turtle. That's my pet.
Perfect. We'll put Slash back in his tank, but it's so nice to meet Slash. That was very fun. Thank you for that, Julian. Do you want to put Slash back? I can take a question in a minute. I can fill time.
Oh no, he could wander around. He's good. He's good.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah.
I love a point that someone brought up earlier in our chat, and it's about feeding wildlife. So I want to harp on this because a lot of kids, when I was a kid, I loved feeding wildlife. It was the best. You see kids feeding wildlife all the time. Can you give some general advice about feeding wildlife, when you should or shouldn't do it, what you should do with it, just anything we can leave our kids with?
Like usually, honestly, it's a big feeding wildlife is like one of the biggest is really discouraged not to do unless if you're like, for example, if you're feeding like ducks or whatever, it has to be like, don't feed them bread, because if you feed them bread, it can get stuck in their necks, because of the bread can get stuck in their neck. What they will say is, if you are going to feed ducks, feed or birds sometimes during the winter. Sometimes you can feed like small songbirds, like seeds, special seeds, and they'll come and fly in your hand. That's fine. And then with like I said, with water birds like ducks, you feed them like seeds. But like definitely when it comes to animal, like you feed them ducks, you feed ducks, you'll feed them specially like stuff like that. But when it comes to predators, like let's say coyotes or foxes, that's an absolute no-no, because what happens is they get used, that the biggest reason why attacks from like coyotes will, maybe there was a report that a coyote might attack somebody or like bite someone, is because these are coyotes that are actually fed. And some people will feel like, oh no, the poor animal is out there, especially in the wintertime, and let me feed them like dog food, let me feed them like food so that they can say, but they're wild animals, they'll survive. And whenever you feed certain wild animals, they'll become they become more habituated to people, and this could then be being a problem in them conflicting with people. And then usually, oftentimes, if the animal does defend itself and attack the person, the animal will get euthanized or killed.
Yes.
So
I'm so glad we got this point. I'm so glad we got this question. I like to highlight it every time we have an urban wildlife story. It's really important. And I'm glad you mentioned specifically the ducks. Not only choke, it affects their wings too. So ducks eventually end up with problems with their wings if they're fed too much bread. So if you have to feed an animal, do it in a place where they're being fed all the time anyway, and make sure you're giving them the right things. I grew up in Toronto parks. People are always feeding the ducks. So just keep that in mind. It's a really important message. So thank you for that, Julian. By the way, we completely derailed everything with the turtle. I knew this was going to happen. The moment you I love your love for Slash, everybody. It's amazing.
He'll make an appearance before the end of. He'll make
Nice.
an appearance. He's right underneath my foot right now, just looking up at me. So,
Logan and Miss Sweeney's class, our grade 6 crew, they want to know, how many documentaries or films have you made in your life?
well, here's the thing. I haven't made like an actual doc per se. I've been a part of documentaries. So there was a documentary that came out on PBS just this summer called Human Footprint. And it was like I got to do like camera work on that show. And then there was another documentary called Great Lakes that was on TVO and PBS last year. And I've also did like a lot of like some more short films. So I did like a piece about like double-crested cormorants, which are like colonial water birds, which have a huge colony in Toronto. And actually they're in the park Tommy Thompson that I mentioned, and you can actually see them along, thousands of them flying with the skyline in the background. And I kind of touched on the colony what are the threats to it, how are they adapting, and what are some of the cool facts about them. And it's on YouTube, it's called Canopy of Cormorants. So it was like one of my very first films. It was one of my very first things I did. And then I still to this day get people saying, oh, I saw I saw that film you made. I was like, oh, that was like 10 years ago, but thanks. So
I'm so glad you mentioned the cormorants. I was going to bring it up before the broadcast was done. No matter what, a lot of people do not know Toronto is one of the biggest cormorant colonies.
Biggest colony of double-crested cormorants in eastern North America.
Okay, it's an incredible thing to witness, to be out on those islands and to see that. There's such a special thing. Julian, one of the questions we get from classes all the time, we actually haven't got it in the chat yet, but I think it's important for our kids to know. We got a lot of younger kids today. What are things that they can do to help protect urban wildlife or protect wildlife in general or welcome wildlife into their lives?
This is like, well, one of the things what you could do is you can help. Like one of the things like students can help conserve local wildlife is you can join local projects like you could join. A lot of times they'll have like restoration programs where they recreate or plant trees, or they like reintroduce animals or and whatnot. So you could either join these like excursions and whatnot. You could education and awareness, like you could learn about you guys could learn something about learn about urban wildlife, and then like let others know, like hey, did you know that like raccoons do this? And it's just kind of like you talking, like, when you're a kid, you're like, hey, did you know this happened and that did you know like this raccoon did this or this baldy? And also to like getting involved in students can do like projects or like find out more information about an animal and talk raise awareness about them, and also volunteering volunteering and even taking part in like school projects or school excursions that deal with wildlife and conservation.
Fantastic. I like highlighting a few things too. We've got a lot of our communities today are in places with zoos. Zoos are real leaders in conservation around the world. What you can look for is AZA in the United States or CAZA accreditation, and that means they're at the highest standard of animal care and conservation. Places like that, like the Toronto Zoo where Julian and I grew up, are amazing, do all sorts of projects for kids, which is really fantastic. And then two others that I always love, a lot of our students really love bats. So I'm going to put this in the chat for everyone too, but Bat Conservation International has an amazing bat box building program. A lot of kids are afraid of bats, but they're really a huge part of urban wildlife in Toronto and around the world. So do check that out. Pollinator Partnership also has amazing programs on native plants you can plant to bring pollinators in. So it's one of my very favorite things. I don't know if you have any pollinators near you, Julian, but they're so special to see some native insects like bees and things near your gardens.
No, it's great. Like, it's great to see like bees, and like you like advocate for backyard biodiversity, and like yes. Like you said, building homes and give them water, because oftentimes you hear like how backyards and gardens like how to keep animals out of your garden, but sometimes you have to create an environment where you can encourage animals and, like you said, build bat homes, but also like have water for them, and like plant native plants and create like an oasis in your garden to attract animals and make especially flowers, and also create butterfly gardens. Like many butterflies are threatened, and especially like monarch butterflies, they migrate to and from as far down as Mexico all the way up to Canada, and they're threatened. And then when you create these habitats for them, they start to thrive more. So create like backyard habitats are surprisingly great spots. And I have my apartment here, and it's amazing that my neighbor's backyard has like tons of wildlife, and I'll just have my camera and just scope it out.
Get out there with your cameras. A lot of you kids, even in grade 3, will have cell phones, and if you use them to great effect, you'll be amazed what you discover, even really small things. Go into your backyard and find species. I remember as a 10-year-old, I went and found 72 species in my backyard alone, like little insects, arachnids, and more.
That is nuts. Yeah.
It is nuts. It's crazy. And I mean, that's the Toronto. Like I grew up where you grew up, 2.5 million people, and you can find that much wildlife close to home.
And
Julian,
I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to. Sorry, I did, and you brought up um zoos. I completely forgot. I had a blackout. Like zoos are like the great are so good, and people, sometimes there are different, polarizing views on zoos, but like I agree and you agree, zoos are great ways for kids to learn about wildlife and education and conservation, especially the accredited zoos. So those are like super great to learn. And I like a lot of them deal with a lot of restoration and breeding of local wildlife. So that's wildlife that's in your backyard, like wildlife that is captive bred and then released back into the wild in your in our area, which is great. Like they have blanding turtles, which are endangered here in Ontario, like one of the rarest turtles. And the Toronto Zoo has a program where it's like they captive breed like blanding turtles and then release them. So 10 years ago there used to be like 12 and now there's like 600. So that's a great thing that the zoos do, which is a great gateway for kids to learn about conservation.
Absolutely. Julian, this has been so much fun. I know our audience is dropping off. Some kids are getting to the end of their school day, so we're going to wrap up.
I know how it is. They're just like, the kids are like, okay, it's time. I want my snack. Yeah. So it's like, all right. So
that's funny. Time flies and you're having fun, but it's been such an incredible journey together. We've been sharing links all day long. And if you have questions for Julian that you didn't get answered, head to his website, julianvictor.com. He's got his email linked right there. You can message him, harass him all day long. That's our goal. We want to make our speakers just be absolutely inundated with your messages when we're done every one of these TMO broadcasts.
First of all, I'm blown away by some of these questions. I was like, wow.
So good. I wish I could take them all.
I know. I'm just like, I'm going through some of them and I'm like, wow, like crazy.
I will briefly highlight before we turn it back to Stephanie to talk about some contest winners and more. Again, Julian's got an amazing website, Instagram page, and more. If you want to see Julian's program with us at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and over 3,000 other broadcasts, our website has all our things that are upcoming. Our YouTube channel has so much more. We like to feature amazing speakers like Julian every single day. So do check that out when you're done. And I am going to turn back over to Stephanie. Julian, before we wrap up, is there a thing you're doing next in your career for people that want to follow along with what you're doing? Anything that we can send them to go look for your next project?
It's right now, just Jesse. Right now, just go like right now. If you watch breakfast television here, if you live in Canada, there I have my monthly segment on the wild side, which comes out every month, where I talk about the diversity of different wildlife. My next upcoming one next week is going to be about Halloween animals that are oftentimes misunderstood during Halloween and how they actually play a part in the ecosystem and why we shouldn't fear them, but actually love them. So that's coming up next. And there are some, look out for next year because 2024 is going to be busy. Okay. I'll say that.
Spoilers. I'm excited for you, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to turn it back to Stephanie to wrap us up today. And a huge thank you again to you as the best audience I've ever seen in a live program ever.
Thank you guys so much. I was blown away by all of your questions. Like every now and again, I look down and I would just be like, bloop, bloop, bloop. And I'm like, okay, lots of questions. I was like, okay, so many, and that was cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. And please feel free to send me an email on my website and I'll get back to you with as much as I can.
Even if it's just for photos of Slash.
He's still here. Thank goodness.
The star of the show. Just kidding. You were both amazing.
Yeah, all right, Slash, you had your moment. So
Oh, thank you so much, you two. Oh my gosh. And thank you for prioritizing so many questions, because I know there was more than we could get to, but you tried your best to answer a lot of them. And it just shows how enthusiastic people are. And I know that people have been asking for urban focused wildlife topics. And I'm so happy that we could find such a fantastic person to speak to those things. And Jesse for hosting. I mean, always a treat. And I'm going to announce prizes in a moment here. And with that comes the necessary thank you to our amazing partners, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, including Jesse by Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And huge shout out also to the Outdoor Learning Store, to Mountain Equipment Company, and Outdoor Play Canada. They're the ones who gave prizes for today. I'm putting in a link there. And awesome. Thanks, Jesse, for adding clips here. So I randomly chose from all the amazing questions. I was checking out the names and putting them in a list, and then I randomly chose the 4 using a random number generator to figure out who was chosen. So the one who won a $25 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store, Madame Healy from Falgarwood, Oakville, congratulations. And you only got 1 entry. It didn't matter if you sent many questions. It was just 1 entry per, per class or per participant. So just letting you know that. Grade 5/6 WC won the MET gift card. So if you want to send your emails in the chat to hosts and panelists, if I call your name, that would be really helpful so that we can make sure you're connected up with your prize. So congrats, grade 5/6 WC. Thank you for your questions. $25 to the TMO store. We sell shirts and toques, all kinds of fun things. I have one that says, ask your teacher to take you outside right now. Shelly Shapansky, congratulations for that. And the last winner of an Outdoor Play Canada membership was Ms. Sweeney's grade 5/6 class. So congratulations to those 4 winners. If I called your name, please send us your email. Yes, amazing. It's always nice to be able to give away some prizes for free to everyone who could show up here live and participate. Without you all, it would be much less of a fun conversation, although I feel like we could have probably kept this going for ages.
We could have. I would just say, I'll just say there was 2, I was like kind of going, but there was like 2 questions someone asked that caught my attention, which I'll say really quickly. Someone asked me, what was the rarest animal I've ever seen? The answer was a black red fox. And that was one of the coolest things, the coolest animals I've ever seen, which but the black fox has like a rare, this fox had a rare, the melanistic, which is like the melanistic black coat. And it was really rare, and it was found along the waterfront here in Toronto, and he became a big celebrity. And I happened to catch him one day when there was a low number of photographers, and it was me and him for like a good couple of hours, and I just followed him around, and he was hunting and catching voles like crazy, and that was really cool. And this was a slash question. This is a question. When someone asked me like, how long does a baby turtle stay in its shell? The answer is they never leave their shell. So turtles, that the shell is actually part of their skeleton, that is part of their body. So sometimes you see in films and like cartoons where the turtle would run out of the shell. That's part of their body.
Wicked, man.
I love that.
I saw that one. I was like, oh, yeah. Because I'm like, yeah, if he came out of his shell, I'd be scared. I would like, if he so.
Yeah, I think when I was in Cordate Zoology in university, we saw a turtle that had died, but they'd preserved the body or the bones. And if you can see that or look up some kind of diagram, a picture of that, you can see that it would be impossible for it to leave its shell. It's really like all part of the same structure. So it's a pretty cool thing to look up if you've never seen actually what the structure of the turtle shell is and how it's incorporated. Well, thank you for picking your 2 last questions there.
I just saw it and I was like, oh, this shit. So
amazing. I think I have almost everyone's email except for grade 5/6 WC. So please send me your email there. And other than that, I'll put a link to the rest of the sessions happening this week so folks can stay connected, and then we'll see you for the rest of all the fun presentations this week. And Jesse and Julian, thank you so much. This has been
Thank
really
you,
fun.
Stephanie, and thank you, Jesse, as always.
Thanks, everyone. And yeah, have a wonderful day. What a great audience, and good luck with the rest of TMO Day week. It's so much fun.
I know.
Thank you. Yeah. The official TMO Day is tomorrow. So we'll see everyone for the celebration there.
The kickoff. So
yeah. Awesome. Bye, everybody.